Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
So it turns out little Susie got pregnant and she's ready to have the baby, so little Johnny's taking her to the hospital. She's in excruciating pain and little Johnny says, Doc, what can we do? He says, well, she's too late for the epidural, but I have one other option. I can transfer the pain over to you, being the father, and it'll take away her pain, but it's going to be 10 times as bad. He says, I don't care. Do what you got to do. So the doc hooks him up and transfers it over 25%. Little Johnny says, I feel nothing. Doctor says, all right. And he transfers over 50%. Little Johnny says, I feel nothing. Doctor says, all right, I'm going to put it at 100%, but it's going to be a lot. So he transfers it over. Little Johnny says, I feel nothing. Doctor says, well, with that kind of pain, you could kill you. Little Johnny says, I still feel nothing. Little Susie gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Later on that week, they go home and they find the mailman dead on their front porch. One day, little Johnny's teacher was sick, and so there was a substitute. Little Johnny comes into class about 10 minutes late, and the teacher says, now, what's your name? He says, my name's Johnny. He says, where have you been? He says, I've been on top of Blueberry Hill. He says, all right, you sit right down here in front of the class. Little Johnny sits down. 10 minutes later, another kid comes in. Teacher says, oh, what's your name? He says, my name's Billy. He says, where have you been? He says, I've been on top of Blueberry Hill. He says, you sit right down here in front of the class. So he sits down. Well, about 10 minutes later, another boy walks in. He says, well, what's your name? He says, my name's Jimmy. He says, where have you been? He says, I've been on top of Blueberry Hill. He says, all right, you sit right down here in front of the class. Well, another 10 minutes later, another girl walks in. He says, what's your name? She says, my name's Blueberry Hill. There was a masked man that went in to rob a bank. Just as he got up to the teller, his mask fell off, but he quickly put it back on. He asked the teller if she saw his face, and she said that she did. He shot and killed her. He asked the teller next to her if she had saw his face. She said she did, and he shot and killed her. Little Johnny was standing behind him, and he asked little Johnny if he saw his face, and he said, no, I didn't, but I'm pretty sure my wife did. Little Johnny's teacher says, little Johnny, you're getting an F on your test. You cheated. Little Johnny said, prove it. She says, okay. The first question on the test was, who was the first president of the United States? And little Susie wrote, George Washington, and so did you. He says, yeah, everybody knows that. She said, okay. The third question on the test was, which president freed the slaves? Little Susie wrote Abraham Lincoln, and so did you. He said, yeah, I read the textbook last night. That's how I knew the answer to that question. She said, uh-huh. Now, the last question on the test was, which president was in office when the Louisiana Purchase was signed? Little Susie wrote, I don't know, and you wrote, me either. One day, little Johnny's walking in the woods, and this bear comes up on him. Little Johnny picks up his rifle, and he shoots, and he misses. He shoots again, and he misses again. He shoots and shoots until he runs out of bullets. And then the bear is real close to him, so little Johnny turns around and runs. He's running as fast as he can, and he knows that he's coming up upon a cliff, so he knows he's either going to fall to his death or that bear's going to eat him. So little Johnny gets down on his knees and he prays to God. He says, God, please spare my life. Please help this bear come to know you so he won't eat me, Lord. Please save me by the grace of your son. Please save me. And just then, the clouds come, the rain comes pouring down, and you hear the thunder and lightning, and the bear looks up and he says, dear God, thank you for the food that I'm about to eat. Little Johnny's teacher was asking the class to tell her something exciting that they did over the summer. Little Johnny sat in the back of the class with his hand high up in the air, but the teacher didn't want to call on him because he always says something very vulgar and crazy. So she got all the way through the class, and little Johnny was the last one, and so she reluctantly called on him and said, little Johnny, come on up here and tell us something exciting that you did over the summer. So little Johnny walks up to the front of the class, grabs a chalk out of the teacher's hand, and puts a dot in the center of the chalkboard. Teacher says, little Johnny, what's that? He says, that's a period. She goes, what's so exciting about a period? Little Johnny says, I don't know, but in July, my sister missed hers. My mom fainted, my dad had a heart attack, and the guy next door shot himself. One day, little Johnny comes home from school early with his head hung low, and his dad says, what's the matter? He says, well, I got an F in math and I got sent home early. He said, what for? He said, well, the teacher asked me what 2 times 3 was, and I told her 6. Dad says, yeah. He said, well, then she asked me what 3 times 2 was, and his dad says, what the fuck's the difference? He says, that's exactly what I said. So there's this little old man that gets on this bus with a cane, and There's no places to sit down, so he's got to stand. Well, just so happens to be standing in front of little Johnny, and he's going along on the bus, and the bus driver turns his corner too fast, and the man can't hold his balance, and he falls down. Well, Johnny can't help but notice this, and he says, "Excuse me, sir." He says, if you'd put a little rubber tip on your cane there, it'd hold your balance, and you wouldn't fall down. The guy looks straight at him, and he says, "You know what? If your dad would have put a little rubber tip on his cane, I'd have a seat on this bus." Teacher says, "Okay, class, I want you to name off some things that you can suck." Little Susie raises her hand, and she says, a popsicle. Teacher says, "Yeah, that's great, little Susie." Little Billy raises his hand. He says, a lollipop. Teacher says, "Yes, that's awesome, little Billy." Little Johnny raises his hand. He says, a lamp. Teacher says, "How can you suck a lamp?" He says, "I don't know. But last night I was walking past my parents' bedroom, and I heard my mom said, 'Hey, honey, turn off that lamp so I can suck it.'" Little Johnny was away at college, and he had a couple of friends from back home come visit. They went out bar hopping and had a good time. They went back to little Johnny's house and went to sleep. Well, little Johnny only had one bed. It's a king-size bed, so he slept in the middle, and it was Billy on the left and Jimmy on the right. And they went to sleep and woke up in the morning, and Billy says, "Oh, man, I had the most vivid dream last night. I dreamt that the bartender at the bar last night jerked me off." Oh, Jimmy says, "Are you kidding me? I had kind of the same dream, except I had a dream that the shot girl jerked me off." Well, Johnny says, "Oh, man, I had a dream that I was skiing last night." Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
So little Johnny grew up and became a farmer, and one day he was working on his tractor when the game warden showed up. Game warden comes walking down the driveway and says, "Hey, little Johnny, I heard you've been poaching, and I'm here to check things out." Well, Johnny says, "I haven't been poaching anything." He says, "Well, do you mind if I look around?" He says, "Yeah, that's fine, just as long as you don't go in that field over there." The guy digs in his pocket, and he pulls out something. He says, "You see this? This is my fucking badge, and it means I can go anywhere I want." Well, Johnny says, "Okay," and he starts working back on his tractor. Well, about 20 minutes later, little Johnny's looking out in the field, and he goes running over there, and he stands at the fence line, and that guy's running as fast as he can. This big bull's behind him, and little Johnny yells, "Show him the fucking badge! Show him the fucking badge!" Little Johnny was getting up there in age, and him and little Susie wanted to try for another baby. And so little Johnny went to the doctor, and he says, "All right, I want you to take this cup home and bring me back a semen sample. Come back the next day." So little Johnny comes back the next day, and the cup is just as clean as it was the day before. Doc says, "What happened?" He says, "Well, tried with my left hand, nothing. Tried with my right hand, nothing. Gave it to little Susie. She tried with her left, her right, teeth in, teeth out, nothing. We brought it to Betty next door. She tried it with her left, her right, even put it under her armpit and in between her knees. Still nothing." Doctor says, "You're trying to tell me you went to your neighbors?" He said, "Yeah. I tried to go to anybody, and no one could get that cap off." So little Johnny picks up little Susie for their first date ever. They're both in college, and she's at her parents' house. And she gets in the car, and he says, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she says, "Well, I want to get weighed." He says, "Okay, we can go down to the carnival, and there's a game over there that if they can't guess your weight, you win a prize." So they park and get out. He says, "All right, so what is it you want to do?" And she says, "I said I want to get weighed." He says, "All right, well, let's go." So they go and wait in line for about a half hour, and they finally get up to the front, and he says, "All right, we'll get on the scale." She looks at him and says, "I want to go home." He says, "All right, well, you've wasted my time anyway. Let's go back to your house." So they go back to the house. Her mom meets him at the door and says, "Well, what happened? Why are you home so early? How was your time?" Little Susie says, "Well, let me tell you, Mom, it was wowsy." So little Johnny's growing up, and he's growing facial hair, so his dad takes him to the barber for his first straight-edge shave. So he sits in the barber chair, and little Johnny says, "I've been shaving for a while, and I always have problems shaving up here on my cheek." The barber says, "I got something perfect for that." And he digs in his drawer, and he pulls out this little ball. He says, "All right, now tuck that up in your cheek, and it'll raise it up so you can get a clean shave." Well, Johnny sticks it in there and says, "Oh, okay, well, it's works. You go like, wow, but what happens if I swallow it?" The barber smiles and says, "Oh, no problem. Just bring it back the next day like everybody else does."